Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Gon Bops Live. I'm Rich Mangiacaro. I'm so glad you could join us today. As we move through all of these shows, we've been having so much fun bringing all of our great artists to you and sharing their wisdom, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And for those of you that haven't had a chance to see the shows yet, they're all archived now on both YouTube and our Facebook page. So you can go back and see our other shows, and we hope you do that. If you have any questions throughout the show, like our previous shows, questions, comments, if you want to ask the guys any questions, please feel free to post them. And if you have a question that we can address as a group, I'll put it on the screen and we'll address them. And I hope everybody's doing good. Gon Bops is doing great. We're flourishing. We're working on new ideas all the time. So I hope you've had a chance to check out our latest new product, which is our Lenny Castro Signature Series drums, which are out on the market now. And you can see Lenny actually performing on his new series on the new John Mayer video that's out now called Last Train Home. So check that out. Check out these cool new congas and bongos that he has with us. And and again, keep your eyes peeled on what we're doing. A lot of good stuff coming up for 2022. Okay. All right. So today's show, I'm excited to bring these two guys to you. They're dear friends of mine. They're inspiring guys to my world as a drummer, as a musician. Both of these guys, I've learned a lot from about just basically thinking outside the box, just kind of taking things to another place that you might not normally think of when it comes to drums and percussion, or combining these two things and into an ensemble idea. So both of these guys are well versed in the Gon Bops family and instruments, and have inspired us to come up with ideas. And so I'm really glad to bring both of these guys to you today. Our first guest, Butch Norton's career spans over 50 years. He is considered one of the most creative drummers, percussionists in the business. Hailing from San Francisco, Butch has worked with an eclectic list of creative artists, including Lowe and Navarro, which is actually when he and I first met, when he was working with Lowe and Navarro, Rufus Wainwright, Tracy Chapman. He was the founding member of the groundbreaking group Eels, and is currently the drummer for Grammy Award-winning artist Lucinda Williams. He's performed on many soundtracks, including the cult classic The Big Lebowski, which I got to ask him about that today. Working with legendary producer T-Bone Burnett. Butch released his first solo record in 2006, records and performs with Lucinda's backing band Buick 6, and recently, along with his fellow drummer friend Michael Jerome, they premiered their eclectic experimental percussion record called La Prima Lingua. La Prima Lingua. Say hi to Butch, everybody.
Welcome, hi, everybody. Welcome. Yay. Hi.
Here we are.
Here I am, eclectic Butch.
Eclectic Butch. Why not?
Yeah, why not? What the hell?
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Great to see you. Great to be seen. Thanks for having me. Let's go. Let's get right to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Joining us today with Butch is drummer, percussion, singer-songwriter Adam Topol, who Adam has worked with a wide variety of some of rock's music legends, including David Gilmour, Ziggy Marley, Jimmy Cliff, Joey Santiago's post-Pixie project, try to say that 3 times fast, the Martinis, and is the drummer percussionist for multi-platinum artist Jack Johnson. He's played on all of Jack's records and has toured all over the world with Jack. Along with a wide range of his drum set skills, Adam has traveled extensively to Cuba, diving deep into his studies of Latin percussion, studying with masters there for many years and really learning that folkloric style. He's released many solo albums, both as a singer-songwriter, also featuring his deep love for Latin and jazz. His jazz record did some charting, so you have to check that out. Adam is also the founder of that much coveted drum mute company, Roots EQ. Everybody say hi to Adam Topol. Yo, Adam.
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday.
Yeah. Check out that.
Or whatever day it is in where you're watching this.
What did they say? What's the joke? Blur's Day or whatever?
Happy Friday or happy Saturday if you're watching from Australia and New
There you
Zealand
go,
or
man.
that side of the planet.
There you go. Love Australia.
Adam, your studio's looking cozier and cozier.
I tried to clean it up. We did our little test run, and it looked like such a man cave back here. I thought I should just present my little world in an organized fashion.
Yeah.
I'm in such esteemed company, man. Two guys that I just love so much and look up to.
We've had some fun in that studio together, Adam. We, for those of you who have seen that our video that Gon Bops put out featuring our new Pandaros a couple of years ago, we filmed it there in Adam's studio.
That's right. Yeah, with Will
Phillips. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
great to be here. I'm so excited.
So, Butch, you're back home for a minute, but you're not for long, right?
Right. Just got home a couple weeks ago, and things are heating back up. Go back out September 29th for a couple festivals in the South, then back home, and then we're going out with Lucinda doing the Willie Nelson family tour, a leg of that in October.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All protocol, COVID, kosher stuff.
Are you seeing a difference in the way they do the crowd spacing, or how they're handling all of that stuff, or is it depend on which state you're in?
We were the 3 weeks we were out. We were in Utah, Texas, and Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. They were all pretty much the same. Everybody had to. We were opening for Jason Isbell, and everybody. His protocol was everybody had to have show vaccine or 72 hours out, negative test, and all the venues, the backstage and crew had to be vaccinated in masks. And during the shows, they were sold out shows, and everybody, it looked like a regular crowd to me. A lot of people with masks and a lot of people without them. But again, as I like to say, kind of jokingly, but seriously, I'm the drummer. No one comes within 30 feet of drummers. So no one's ever around me. So I'm fine.
Right.
Yeah. And as we were saying yesterday, jokingly, but very true, if someone gets near me, I just take out a stick and start smacking the snare drum, and people just run away. So
yeah, we have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Adam, have you done you've done some spot things? I think you told me where you played some live stuff, not real recent, but you've done some live stuff this past year, right?
Yeah, smaller stuff. I've been off with anything big. But I just had the best show. I played at the Libero Theater in Santa Barbara with Zach Gill. And It was a really cool show. Probably anybody other than the Santa Barbara crowd wouldn't know, but the Libero is a classic venue. I mean, people, Fred Astaire, like some of the iconic older entertainers would do shows there.
Great theater.
Yeah, so it's not particularly a rock show venue, but the Santa Barbara community, it was, I don't know the exact story, but there was a benefactor who kept it alive and who did a series of shows. I was really lucky to get asked, and it was so fun, you guys, just to kind of break myself in, playing to more people. So Zach plays with Jack Johnson, Zach Gill, and he plays with Animal Liberation Orchestra, and he's an incredible solo artist himself.
Yeah,
and he's got such a cool book of songs,
Oh,
and I was happy to get eased back into it on a show like that. They spaced out. It was an indoor gig, but the crowd was spaced out in terms of seating, and the presentation was super cool too. It was they basically curated a band of people, all of whom were local Santa Barbara artists of different types, whether they were musician writers or singer songwriters or dancers or whatever. It was such a fun show. We got to play Zach's songs, and so the Libero show was great. So just did that, and then before things got sort of intense, just play like little outdoor gigs. I think didn't we do something, Butch? You played a floor tom. It was so fun.
Yes. We were at that barbecue joint on Sepulveda there, right in Culver City. Yeah. I showed up, you threw your floor tom at me and said, play.
It was so great. And
it was super great. It was, that was one of the first things I had done in quite a while. And it was super, anytime we all get to play together, it's just a treasure and a joy.
Yeah. And it meant, sorry to talk too long, but Butch, I just kind of want to give you a shout out. Going places and being around people, depending on how you feel about this whole situation, presents at least a mild form of risk or a little anxiousness. And the fact that you showed up to an outdoor gig at a very close friend's restaurant with a great band, and you just showed up for a friend, right? I don't know if you showed up for me or the barbecue, but you live kind of far away.
Mostly for the barbecue.
Mostly for the barbecue. The brisket is very good. Maple Block, everybody. In Culver City, by the way, shout out. But that you showed up and that you hung and played. It was incredibly meaningful for me. It was
likewise, my friend. And did you get an invoice for that?
You were wearing pink, so anybody that wears pink actually agrees to play for free.
I remember reading the disclaimer. I remember the ND. Right, got it.
There you go. And I've worn pink trousers around Rich, and I'm sorry to out you, Rich, but I think I was mocked by wearing pink trousers. So I didn't mock you, but your invoice is. Sorry.
No, I didn't mock you. I have them now. I proudly display those when I can.
80s.
I should have worn them today, but you're only going to get the top half, thankfully. Have you guys actually done a lot of performing together, whether it be impromptu or planned? I mean,
we did with you, Rich. It was one of the best drumming events I've done. Playing those yoga classes. That was fantastic.
That was great. Actually, what Adam just said, in Los Angeles, pre-pandemic, we used to, once in a while, we would play the improv percussion gigs together for yoga classes in Los Angeles. And there's a very cool yoga studio. Actually, it just reopened. I heard it's called Center for Yoga in this one part of Los Angeles. It's just a beautiful room. And we used to put a percussion ensemble together. And it involved us, the three of us, or it would involve and Rich Ferguson, who's a dear friend of ours, a great spoken word artist and percussionist, and it involved Michael Barsamanto and Kalani, and just great. And but we had a teacher, a dear friend of ours named James Morrison, who's an actor and musician, great yoga teacher, and he was very accommodating and really welcomed the music, and it added a whole nother level to practicing yoga. It's kind of cool. So I miss it.
and the experience and the experience of drummers coming together, improvising in the moment. There's nothing like that. That started for me when I went to Cal Arts 1980, when I came down to Cal Arts and started found this world of modern dance, and the percussionists would just gravitate towards the classes, and we were allowed to accompany the modern dance classes, 4, 5, 6 percussionists. And that has morphed into this yoga thing, and a lot of amazing experiences with guys like you and other percussion drummy friends, where we just get to improvise and create these rhythms and sounds. It is a magical, special thing to do.
It really is. I really want to do more of it. Let's try to make it happen some more, because I really miss it. And it really gives you a chance to really think outside the box and think textures and also I loved how we, and how you can utilize the space to influence, what instrument you may use and how you're going to play dynamically. There's a lot to it, a
lot of listening.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Butch, I was going to ask both of you about your background in this. So let's talk a little bit about what brought you from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Was it Cal Arts?
Yes, it was Cal Arts. I was, grew up in the Bay Area in the 60s, playing the rock drums, and And I studied with a couple different amazing teachers. Anthony Cerrone, Portraits in Rhythm. I did a summer thing with him and took some drum set lessons with Charles Dowd, Funky Primer book. And right around that time, I was doing some orchestral stuff, and I was sucking really hard at it. And Anthony Cerrone, I took some mallet lessons with him. And his Portraits in Rhythm book, that red snare drum etude book, I had been playing through it, and he said, well, let me hear you do etude number 1. And I got 3 bars into etude number 1, and he said, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this.
Really?
Yeah. No, he was so sweet, but he was honest, you know. The complicated rudiments and stuff, Butcher's a meat and potatoes guy. So I knew there was something else, and Anthony opened up the Pandora's box, and I found this place, Cal Arts, and I met John Bergamo, who graciously allowed me to come because I was not a prodigy, or I knew nothing about world music, but I knew there was something other than the drum set that I needed to find out about. And so I was accepted, and for 5 years, I quit playing drum set for 5 years, and went deep into the world music and sound and new music, Subotnick and John Cage. And it was a magical time. John Bergamo was the best thing ever happened to me. And that's where I studied tablas for a couple of years, and where I got my quote unquote freehand technique. That was Bergamo's thing. Just freehand, you know, yeah, there's a lot of different styles, but just get your hands on something, start playing it. And that opened this whole world to me.
For those of you that don't know what school he's talking about, Cal Arts is a fantastic world percussion school just north of Los Angeles.
California Institute of the Arts,
yeah,
or Cal Arts, yeah.
Up near an area where we have Magic Mountain, the famous amusement park. But you know, Butch, Bergamo, when I was studying music in the late 70s at Syracuse University, right, Bergamo came and did a clinic there, and I'll never forget it because it just kind of opened everything up for me as a hand drummer. Back then when I was learning congas, his finger technique stuff, I kind of blew my mind. He was doing it on congas, and how he was just thought that way. It was so interesting, you know.
For anybody, look up John Bergamo, Bergamo. There's videos online. His thing was just pick it up and play it.
Yeah.
And his technique, you're talking about his hand technique. He played tablas, he played Pakowich, he played Murdungum. He just morphed all these things, and he said, freehand, let's go. Just throw your hands on it. And watching him was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, it was really inspiring.
Yeah.
Talk about a little bit about Cal Arts. How did that, when you got into that school, did they, because, you know, I went to a more legit percussion school where we did mostly classical percussion. I happened to have a teacher who was, his family was from Mexico, and he really knew congas, so I kind of got my start with him, but it was mostly orchestral. Most of the stuff that I studied was, you know, very little drum set or percussion, or it was basically mallets and orchestral snare drum and etudes. And talk about Cal Arts, because Cal Arts really seemed like it opened the door for more of the Middle East and India and all that. How does they approach that when you get there? Do they give you is there just a curriculum that you have to go into all those things, or do you choose, or how did it work?
Yeah, no, it was very free, and there was no, you know, here's what we have to offer. Here's the teachers, the Ladzepkos, the Wentons, the African, the Tarnath Rao, who I studied tabla with, Amia Dasgupta. The real deal, the real people were there. You walked in, you met people, and okay, here's the groups we're getting together. Here's the classes. It was very informal. It was an amazing time. The teacher to student ratio, there was like 2 students for every 1 teacher. So everybody, there was only 500 students at that time, 500 or 600 in the entire, that's all they were allowed. And so everybody knew you, and you worked with you were allowed to do anything really, and there was no English, science, math. It was all the arts, film, video, animators, dancers, theater. Yeah. And so we all commingled and did interdisciplinary stuff. And for 5 years, I didn't know anything else that was going on in the outside world. It was quite an amazing time.
Really immersive, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of our colleagues went to that school. Who was there when you were there? In your school?
This guy, M.B. Gordy.
Okay. Another Gon Bops artist. Yep.
Bob Fernandez. I'm sure you know Bob. Art Jarvinen.
I don't know him. Yeah.
A lot of really amazing artists.
Yeah. Was Ed Mann teaching there at the time?
I got there in '80. He was doing some private teaching, but he wasn't on the staff at that time.
And who was teaching drum set there at the time?
There was no drum set.
Okay.
No.
Because they had that now. I don't.
Oh yeah, no. Well, they had years after I left. Charlie Hayden came in, and that was the birth of the jazz program.
The jazz program, right?
Yeah, we didn't have that when I was there. That didn't come until about '86 or '85, right after I left. Yeah.
Okay. Adam, Reno, talk about your early influences there and what you were studying and how you got yourself from there down to here or wherever you went. I think you went to Berkeley, but before you went to Berkeley, what was it like learning music in Reno?
Reno, Tahoe area. I think there were lounge bands, Tahoe, Reno, especially when I came up there, were primarily like either resort. Tahoe was a resort place, or maybe a second home spot. In Reno had a gaming industry. It was just like a not blue collar. There was all kinds of people, but it was just like an American town in the mountains that had gaming. I think I love seeing bands play, pickup bands or cover bands or whatever. Now is like somebody that's played a lot of those myself and seen a lot more. I take it for granted, but all it takes is for me to just put myself back in the place of like an 11-year-old kid or a 7-year-old kid or whatever, and going to a restaurant, being dragged out to dinner with your folks. If you're a little kid, dinner might be challenging, man, because the grown-ups want to have dinner and talk and enjoy a night out. My kid's just like, I'm bored, dude. We're done with dinner. I'm bored. And so we used to go to different places, and if I was lucky, there'd be a cover band. You go to the lounge, you wouldn't be allowed in because you're underage, but you could kind of peek over and see a band play. So, Tahoe would get, I remember there was a couple of bands, guy had a B3 with like a foot bass on it, and there was a drum kit player. And they were just, I would imagine, I don't think it was originals, covers, but seeing something like that is pretty magical for a kid because it's the first time you've seen it, or maybe the third time you've seen it. Bar Mitzvah, if there was a band, was pretty epic. Maybe speaking of Butch's floor tom cameo and this last thing we did, I could do. If I was lucky, they would let me do some floor tom cameos where I'd sneak in and be like, "Can I play something?" And they'd slide the floor tom, and you'd ruin their groove or whatever. But those were those were cool. I remember there was this time at Berkeley where we would get free studio time. This was pre-Pro Tools, and the music production and engineering students would for their classes, they would record other bands, and I wanted to just get in a studio. It was, we didn't have Pro Tools or anything, so when you get in a studio, it was pretty magical. And so I found a guy, wasn't really into reggae, and we found a guy, legitimate reggae singer, a dreaded guy. I think he was from Trinidad. I don't think he was from Jamaica, but just made friends with him, and I had a student band, and we talked him into doing some of his stuff in one of these production projects. And remember, we recorded and stuff, and we recorded for free, and we got to hear it back through the speakers. And he was like, let's go play out. And, when are we going to take this on the road? And we were like, well, we're in school, and he's like, no, he's like, you've got to bring the music to the people, add a Caribbean accent, which I'm not even going to attempt in a live setting. But I freaking remember that, and so I hearken back to Tahoe and Reno, and in areas where, culturally speaking, we didn't have access to I think what the cities had. And those little cover bands, that was a cool education. There were no barriers. You could walk up to the drummer and ask him a few questions. You could see somebody playing brushes, and you'd watch somebody set up a drum set. Those are very powerful things. Butch talked about Cerrone, getting to study with Cerrone, and I think for myself, I didn't have that. Now I would kill to sit down with a Cerrone guy or go through and look at an etude book.
But didn't you study with Alan Dawson?
Yes, but that was later in life. But
okay, it was later.
In the earlier as Tahoe Reno, I didn't have that level of discipline. I was like into skateboarding, and the band teacher didn't particularly appreciate my lack of attention span. I would, but if you can see a drum set player sitting down and playing a backbeat and watching the energy of a band, that's powerful. So Tahoe Reno really, with what seemed like a minimal scene, there was a ski town and there were live bands, and we put little bands together as kids, and that was my start.
Really, when you got to Berkeley, who was your more influential teacher there? Who would you say was like out of the guys that you studied with there had an impact?
John Ramsey, for sure.
John Ramsey.
There's a guy you probably may or may not have heard of him, John Ramsey.
Yeah.
Who is in his own right a great. He drums everything, but I particularly like his sense of hard bop drumming. He was a disciple of Art Blakey, and he would double drum with Art Blakey, but he also road managed Art Blakey with what I'm interpreting. I don't want to tell a story, but my interpretation is his intent was to document Art Blakey. And there's a book out that he had written a long time ago where he documented so many nuances of Art Blakey that I don't remember anybody had written down. I don't know. And he did the same with Alan Dawson, who Alan, if you guys don't know, taught Tony Williams. We didn't teach Tony Williams, but I mean, he was such an expert in rudiments and vibraphone, and I guess at the discipline of jazz, Alan was the guy, in my opinion. And so John Ramsey was a disciple of those people, and so he certainly spun my head around when I got to Berkeley. So certainly Ramsey, Skip Haddon was another teacher. So many guys that just knew so much stuff. When
were you at Berkeley?
Was there around 93, 94, 95, 96. Mm-hmm. So classmates of mine, John Roberts, Taco Hirano, a really great percussionist.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Abe Laborio Jr. We were such fans and champions of those guys. They were destined to head to LA and just crush it, Mm-hmm. And so, Boston was a whole other trip than Reno. I mean, Butch, did you, from the Bay Area, when you went to Cal Arts, was going to Los Angeles something that kind of like just spun your head around in terms of seeing your pool grow, or were you already exposed to some heavyweights when you were in the Bay Area?
Same kind of situation. I mean, I was in cover bands starting at 12, 13 years old, and the same experiences that you had. I mean, that's how I started playing, playing in cover bands and watching these other drummers, watching them set up the kits. In San Francisco, I was exposed to a lot of stuff, and I had some amazing band teachers, especially my high school band teacher, John Rando, was such a champion for me. I also was a bonehead, still am, but was quite a bone. I played a lot of sports, and I was playing football in high school. I was on the varsity team, and thankfully I hyperflexed my right knee in a practice one day, and realized, oh, that's going to really fuck with my drumming. I gotta quit.
Yeah,
not a good thing. So coming to Cal Arts for me, I didn't come to, I went directly to Cal Arts. So I went into this world all of its own that had nothing to do with LA. So I didn't get to LA until about 6 years later.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Rich.
No, I was just going to say, Butch, I was thinking about when you and I first met, which was a long time ago. I mean, is probably, it's over 25 years ago, but I think, did I meet you when you were working with Lowen and Navarro? That's what I'm pretty sure was when we met, right?
Yes. I was turned down by everybody except Rich Mangiacaro. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but
Lowen and Navarro.
Lowen and Navarro.
It's a great band.
Amazing singer-songwriters. They wrote this little song called "We Belong" for Pat Benatar.
Oh.
And they were writers, scraping by trying to figure out how to get going. And then they wrote some songs and the Bangles covered them. And then they got their own duo. This is 88, 89. This is when things started to take off, and I auditioned and I toured with them for about a year and a half. And that's how I eventually met E and got to the Eels, and great singer-songwriters. Eric Lowen unfortunately died of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, a few years ago. But Dan Navarro's out there singing and traveling in his van now all over the country. Super sweet guy. That's where we met. 89, I think, or 90.
I think it was the Ventura Theater.
Oh wow! Yes,
I think it was there. I'm trying to remember if it was a double bill. Were you guys doing a double show with the Bodines, maybe?
Yes. Wow.
Really?
Yes. Wow. Yes. Oh, yes, the Bodines. That's right.
Because a dear friend of mine, Raphael Gale, was playing drums for the Bodines. I think he was.
Oh, no. You mean Danny Gale.
Well, Danny Gale, yes. Yeah.
He eventually went back to his birthright name.
Right.
Yes. Danny, who was with the Bodines, who had like a number 1 record at that time.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, we had done a bunch of shows with him, and we were in at the 930 Club in DC, right?
Yeah.
And he gets off the bus, and we pull up in our Chameleon Records van, and we all stumble out. And he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Butch, do you have $10 I could borrow?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, we're not making any money. I need to eat some food." And I'm like, "Dude, I need $10. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, right. We're talking about this drummer. We're talking about, everybody, Raphael Gale. He spent about 4 to 5 years up to when Leonard Cohen passed away. He was playing with Leonard Cohen. So great drummer. If you ever get a chance to see the last live recording of Leonard Cohen.
Amazing drummer. And Raphael, who also has dabbled in the acting world, right? He took some time off and became a soap opera actor. I'm hoping. I think.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And Adam, when you finished, when you finished with Berkeley, is that what brought you to Los Angeles? Because I know when you were in Berkeley, you also started getting the bug to go to Cuba, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think what I want everybody to know about Adams, along with all of his years working with Jack Johnson and all those great records and live shows that you know him for, Adams' world is really opened up from all of his travels going to Cuba and studying folkloric percussion. So how did that bug come to you?
I was in Boston at Berkeley, and maybe getting back to exposure, I was really inspired by what Butch was talking about and his experiences in Cal Art and his exposure to, for lack of a better term, world music. And Boston had had such a great environment in terms of like being exposed to whatever. I guess back then we called it world music. I don't know the terminology now, but I was playing in a band, a type of music called sukus. There's a Zairian community in Boston, and there were a couple of guys that played guitar. I don't know if you guys have heard sukus, but it's more guitar driven, and so getting exposed to that was incredible, and that started the bug of just learning more world music. I had a side job at Tower Records, I think the now defunct Tower Records, and I liked world music, and so they put me in charge of being the guy that organized and stacked all the world music section. World music guy, come over here. And so that was one of the first things. There was this group that came into town, so I just got interested, and it was a really small section, but I would just get into that stuff and learn about, Rai music and who's Ofra Haza from Israel. You just a curiosity. I didn't know. I would just kind of dub Latin music as like a Latin music. So whether it was from Brazil or whether it was from Peru or whether it was from Puerto Rico, Cuba, Mexico, was Latin music, because I just didn't know. I didn't know clave or anything like that. And then this group called the Muñequitos de Matanzas came in town. And one of my really good friends named Ben Crames, who's a fantastic hand percussionist and producer and pianist and stuff, he had been to Cuba several times and kind of was a zealot. Nobody was going to Havana back then, especially unless you had permission. And he was going back and forth through a program, and it hooked up with the folkloric community. And he was studying in Berkeley. He wanted to expand, and he had hit me to Cuban music, and he was like, "This is the deepest stuff." He was playing bata drums, and he knew about rumba and weirdo and all this stuff. And he's like, "Adam, there's a group called the Muñequitos playing. You have to see them." And at the time, I'm like, I'm busy, I'm in school. He dragged me there, and I was blown away. And it was one of the first times I had seen a style of music called rumba, where there were primarily three guys playing a low, mid, and high drum, someone accompanying with a stick rhythm, someone playing claves, and then singers. And then they would sing songs in Spanish. My Spanish still isn't good enough to understand what they're talking about, but they would sing songs that had social commentary, storytelling, love songs, all this stuff. They would sing, the drummers would accompany the vocalists, and then dancers would come out and perform. And just seeing this stuff in the theater and feeling it was the first time I just thought, wow, this is really feels like the beginning of so much stuff that I loved. And so really it was the Muñequitos that got me started, Rich.
When was the first time you went to Cuba?
First time I went, easily 10, 15 years ago. There was a program, Bay Area based, called Caribbean Music and Dance. And what a gift. They would basically, I had no idea what I was getting, but it was almost like if you look in a magazine and there's like those rock and roll fantasy camps. Have you guys seen those?
Yeah.
Where a musician can go and play with somebody from Aerosmith or Heart or whatever, which seems like a really fantastic time for somebody that loves that genre. This is kind of like the folkloric fantasy camp for drummers almost. But I didn't know it at the time. I just wanted to go to Cuba, and it was the way to go with the license.
Right.
They basically flew us to Havana, which had a minimum 10, 15 years ago, especially the tourism from North America to Cuba was minimal. And I didn't know anything. Like I didn't come from that background. Tahoe, Reno stuff that I wasn't exposed to it. So just imagine showing up, all of a sudden being brought to the Escuela Nacional de Arte, which I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's in this area called Miramar in Havana, and the architecture is exquisite and amazing and kind of untouched since the revolution. So you have no idea what to expect. You go from Cancun, which is in Mexico, you fly through, which is a really great thing, but maybe more touristy. You see Cheeseburgers in Paradise franchise in the airport, and then you get on a plane, you fly in, and all of a sudden you're in Cuba. No billboards other than, pictures of Jose Marti, slogans, pro-revolution, all of a sudden patriotism or death. Like it's Cuba's a very different environment. So it was this massive cultural shift. You get driven to Miramar, which is like this incredible area. You go and all of a sudden you're studying you get in a class with Changuito.
Wow.
Have you guys heard of Changuito? Rich,
Sure.
you've dealt with Changuito before.
Yep.
Who kind of was one of the guys who invented songo, like everything. He's sort of the Miles Davis of Latin music. You get thrown in with him. You get thrown in with guys like Pancho Quinto, who was one of the founders of a style of rumba which improvises a lot. And I had no idea. I didn't really even know the difference between son clave or rumba clave, and so it was thrown into the deep end.
When the first time when you did that, and you were, as you say, thrown in, was it a very kind of, you're in a classroom, it's very immersive, and there's other people, and you're basically just kind of trying to follow along, or was it? I mean, you didn't speak the language, so what was it like your first time, putting your hands on the drum? What happened?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'll make a comparison. Butch was talking about getting to study with all these masters at Cal Arts and all the great stuff he did with it. And like, I had that opportunity in Berkeley prior to going over there. And, great teachers. Ed Uribe was there. And so he would talk, Ed Uribe would proper knew that stuff. He worked with Ray Barretto and all this great stuff. But we were at Berkeley, and for me, and this is the challenge with academia for me, is that it was just that. It was theoretical, because not having a context for a rhythm or a sound, it almost felt like an academic exercise to me, where I liked it, and I tried to do a songo beat, but be like, wow, this is really busy. This shows off technique and chops, and this is a rhythm you do when you want to shine or be expressive. That context maybe threw me a little bit, because I tend to be more of a minimalist on drums, hopefully by choice. But then seeing somebody go through those rhythms, a teacher, or maybe talk about songo or rumba or salsa, whatever, within the context of why they did it there, it became the point became more evident. So back, if you would have played me a rumba rhythm without seeing it over there, it would have been more academic. I wouldn't have had a context. But then if I go to a classroom with a guy that grew up in Havana and who played rumba, he'd break down the parts, and then you'd see them sync those parts together, play it at like a gathering where they would play rumba and people would get up and dance. All of a sudden, it made me want to dive in and brave those waters, because it all made sense. And the context of why they did it, of what it meant, of how it felt, of what the dance looked like, of what their chatter and gossip felt like all those things made me want to take the time to dissect it, and it gave it a context. And I think for me, all these forms of music are beautiful, but when I have the context of why it was invented and who it was for, it put it inside my heart. And so those are different. Academia is one thing, but the heart is a different thing. And I think having somebody just show me a basic clave rhythm and why it was that and how it applied, I was like, okay. And
so you're in this room. How many, like, you go for 4 or 5 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And you would just they'd show, okay, no, Adam, no, you're doing that wrong. Boom, boom, boom. Right. This was like what we did at Cal Arts. There was no academia. Was the beauty of it. It's like, right, you're with the real guys, and they're like, no, here's what we do at home. We're gonna sit, and you're gonna play the shakere. Oh, you're not allowed to play those other instruments until you get this part down. Yeah, this is how we're doing this. Yeah. And so how many days were you there?
We were there for 2 weeks. And Butch, here was the magical part too, and is that, in this course, it wasn't at a place like Berkeley. It was a course where the skill levels were varied. So there were some people who were like you guys, like did sessions and tours and stuff. And then there were some people that were retired doctors. And then it was a really diverse crowd. So it was immersive too, in that we would all have to understand it together. And kind of the person that maybe wasn't practicing every day and that had another career path, you know, some of the basic technique, they were coming from scratch. And then some people got it right away. And so it was also a lesson in teamwork. So with world music and with rumba, one person is soloing on that high quinto drum, and they're shining, and they've got that drum face, and they're impressing everybody. And then other people are singing the chorus. And then some people have the middle part that's supporting it, and they can do little bits of improv. Some people are playing the shekere. And so that's a notion. And then some people were dancing. That's a notion of teamwork, of
community.
And
community,
the classroom environment was the same thing, where, you know, I had no idea. I didn't speak a word of Spanish, and other people did, but they were showing me things on the side, and they were patient with me. If I was a little bit slower, hopefully, and on a good day, if I was in a class where there were some people that were slower, you know, I would take the time so that they could kind of learn heel toe, whatever, slap. And so there's a character building element, which I heard you talk about. And I think that's what those guys taught me. They had character too, you know?
Do you feel by being there, there's many times you've been there, but the way that you learn there with the immersiveness and the community, and being kind of seeing it broken down between the different drums with dance involved, gave you a much better way of really understanding it. I mean, it seems like to me that would be a more clear path to understanding the music, really, if you're there seeing them break down the parts between the two drum or the three drums or whatever, you know, because it is based in dance. It is based in that, right? So
yeah, it was powerful. And this isn't at all meant to like discredit people that have never been. I still like to play for, you know, folkloric music for fun or whatever. And there are a lot of people that are incredibly great and who sound so authentic, who have never had the opportunity to go. Now there's resources, there's YouTube, there's so many resources. There's a really healthy community here. And there are some people that are fantastic, self-realized, that have never been, that have had access to that material. What was special for me was back then, we didn't have that. We didn't have YouTube, and it was really hard to find material. So, you know, a CD, we didn't have Spotify even. So if I wanted to buy a CD of Cuban music, you just have to take a risk and throw down $11.99 in a compact disc, which is, especially if you're a drummer musician, that's a big investment, and you might find something cool and you might not. So getting to go there was a gift, you know, because all of a sudden you were handed the real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sitting down, so just learning the basic tumbao pattern, like the low drum to rumba, became special because I knew that I was with the progenitors of a certain genre, and I was just psyched, you know, because there was this end game to understand the whole picture and to maybe approach Latin music with authenticity. It gave me some humility and some desire to learn it, to just take direction, learn. So with the folkloric music community too, which is what I focused on, there's a huge discipline there, but it's different, you know, because that music in my mind came from the street, and there was a different way of learning. There was a different attitude. There was a different flow, and those guys showed me some other stuff. You know, the guys I admired the most weren't even necessarily professional musicians in the sense that people are here. One guy was he was an X-ray technician, but he played the most great quinto I've heard. But, you know, he had another gig. Other people, you know, they did what they did to get by, you know, they were.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden music became a cultural expression, like what I saw in Hawaii with surfing. It wasn't a career aspiration. It didn't involve Rolling Stone magazine or anything. It was just a beautiful, expressive thing that people did.
Right.
That's a notion that kept me wanting to do music. It didn't feel alienating to me.
Yeah.
Because at times when it becomes a commercial, there's nothing wrong with commercial art. I love going to shows and seeing incredible drummers that can reach out to everybody. But I also love it when music is a cultural expression and it's just in itself a beautiful act, and there's no end game other than just getting the community involved or whatever. And I saw that in every corner there. And so I think that idea, again, we talk about the heart. It accessed my heart, you know.
Butch, you know, we coming from San Francisco, playing in bands, getting your thing going as playing drum set, and then going to Cal Arts and just completely immersing yourself into world percussion and learning tabla and all those hand drums. When you finished at Cal Arts, did you have a desire to continue to try to find gigs as more of a hand drummer, or did you? You went back to drum set, and shortly after you started getting to work with the artists that we talked about with Lone Navarro and stuff. But was there a point where you were like, maybe I'm gonna go that way instead of this way, or
no?
Or not?
My intention was for myself. My goals were go immerse myself in this world that I knew nothing about, that I had no business being a part of, really, and soak it all in. Everything that Adam was saying about going to Cuba, Havana, and the school there, that's what Cal Arts was. There was all these people who, there were dancers and theater and animators that were allowed and encouraged to come to the African class. So there were people that it wasn't just all drummers who were superior drummers. It was, they wanted to create the experience that Adam had in Cuba. My goal when I went there was to soak all this in and to apply it to my drum set world when I got out. That's what I was thinking at the time. So I got out of Cal Arts. All my buddies at Cal Arts, 90% of them, went to Cal Arts and stayed true to their art form. I was picking pieces here and there, trying to puzzle together my own thing. And then I got out of Cal Arts and started working with a husband and wife duo. We had a trio. That's because that's where I knew how to make money. We were playing in bars in the Valley for about 2.5 years. And then I said, I can't do this anymore. How am I going to be a recording touring drummer? I have to quit that and just focus on all original stuff, and went down to the music contact service on Sunset Boulevard and signed up, paid my $25 and went up to the billboard there and looked at the note cards and went on every audition I could find until, things just started coming together. And then when the Eels came along, that's when I said, I've got to now take this hand drum stuff and weird percussion sounds, and I've got to throw it into this alternative rock thing. How do I make this happen? And that's when that part of myself really kind of blossomed, and all the stuff from Cal Arts started coming together. And then I started doing a lot of more weird percussion events and things. And I just pieced it all together.
Well, before we get to the Eels, I want to talk to you about that. But one of my main inspirations for having the two of you on this show today was because both of you have kind of started out the same way as playing drum set, doing gigs, found percussion, a wider range of percussion instruments in your life, and hand drumming, and went and dove into it. You both did that. And then you both integrate the instruments in a way that I think is very creative. But I also think because you did that, both of you have expanded your ability on the kit to a place that I think is really important. And I want to say this to everybody that's watching is that, you know, as drummers and percussionists, it's a big world of choices we have, you know, and these two guys have explored that, and it's expanded their approach and their ability on the kit. You know, I also think it's really important for all of us to learn a melodic instrument, you know, which the three of us do, whether it's guitar or piano, and it just expands everything. It just widens the envelope, and you guys have both done that so well, and it inspired me. And
thanks, man.
As well as, you know, I want to talk a little bit about combining percussion and drums together and how you think of the hybrid idea. And but the Eels, Butch, that was a really interesting project. Of talk a little bit about how that came to you, and that I think that did kind of expose Butch to the eclectic thing that we know you're so good at, and coming up with sound choices. I mean, you know, I posted yesterday, I think it was, on our Facebook page, that video that you did in the hotel room. You know, think outside the box, so to speak, and there's always instruments everywhere. So was the Eels a vehicle for you at that point to, like, oh, I can go this way now?
Yes, yeah, it was definitely a vehicle for that, and I pushed the envelope. I mean, that first kit that I had for the Beautiful Freak tour was a 30-inch bass drum, Hunt Sales old bass drum from Tin Machine.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, that I got. I got it at Black Market Music on La Cienega. E said, get down here. There's a orange sparkle kit with this huge bass drum. We have to buy it. And we bought the kit. I took it over to Stan and Jerry to look at. And they said, where'd you get this kit? And I said, I got it at Black Market Music. Oh, they go, that's Hunt Sales' old kit. We worked on this about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So we used the bass drum, and then I used, as a floor tom, I used a Remo plastic-headed tambourine, and then I used a Remo djembe as a snare drum. And I only had one cymbal, and I had triangles, and it was and I broke everything down from the record, which was all mostly loops and hip hop beats, and I broke it down into this weird percussion mismatch, which had nothing to do with the record, and it worked.
Wow. Was that when you had the big cymbal, the one cymbal, but you had like a 30-inch cymbal?
You allowed me to make a 30-inch Paiste cymbal because I saw someone at Pro Drum had a 28-inch cymbal, and I said, I need 30 inches. And you said, oh, Paiste can make that for you. So, you know, I bought one. I brought that in on the Souljacker tour rehearsals, that 30-inch cymbal, which I use with Lucinda as a kind of a gong cymbal now. But I used it on my regular kit, and we started the song, and it drowned everything out in the band. You couldn't hear the guitars, the bass, and he said, why do you have that?
Yeah, right. Right.
And I said, because it's got a 12-inch bell, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we didn't get to use that for that, but that's been used many different times. And then from there, yeah, each tour I was able to tool with the Eels very different sounds and make my own ideas from what the records were.
Yeah. It was really good stuff. If you haven't seen this stuff or heard it, you guys go out and find it because it's really creative.
Lots of videos out there.
It's a very interesting band and really, really creative. So, and Adam, you started with Jack Johnson quite a long time ago too.
Yeah.
When was the first intro to working with him? I remember you told me a little bit of a story about that, but how did you initially meet him?
He through a guy named JP Plunier who has a record label called Everloving, and he was managing an artist named Ben Harper, and we love Ben. You know, he's fantastic. You know, and they're from Claremont. They had their own sound, and JP just called me and said, "There's a really great artist named Jack Johnson. he's going to call you, get together and play with him. And we did. And I heard he just did this. Oh man, he was just the nicest kid. He pulled up in an old car, and he had this old amp with one broken speaker and an acoustic guitar with one of those pickups that you shove in the little hole of the guitar. And he proceeded to play amazing songs that the minute I heard him, I was like, this is incredibly special. And I think I was just getting exposed to things like Bill Withers and the acoustic thing. I mean, singer-songwriter is a blanket terminology, but if you hear someone like that can write things that express feelings, complicated feelings, but it feels a certain way, and there's an underlying pulse to it. So we talked about rumba a little bit. It's like there's an element of dance or movement. I think, and I talk about guys like Ben Harper, or I think about Bill Withers and stuff, where they were expressing their feelings, but the context was cool, and there was some funk underneath it, or some syncopation, or a different take on it. And Jack had that. I never heard that before. And we were just in my little rehearsal studio, and he pulled up, just left UCSB, and played me some songs. And the minute I jammed along with it, I was like, this is special. And I had played with a lot of really talented singer-songwriters who sang in pitch, who could play the guitar without looking at the neck, who could perform songs, and they were all good, But sometimes you get around a musician or artist, and just I almost call them outliers. We're just out of the gate. They have something that's strikingly different, and certainly he had it.
Yeah.
And
how many years have you been with him now? 20 something, right?
Yeah, a long time. Yeah, I think Fairy Tales we did.
But he's also what I've always been impressed with him and your work with him is he's very accommodating and welcoming to his band members as far as part of the total picture. I mean, you've been involved with all the recordings. It's really a band. It's his music, but he seems to really like the collaboration side of it. Am I right?
Definitely. I mean, I think part of the professionalism, you guys are like professionals. And I think we were talking about the difference between maybe going to Cuba and learning things, and then maybe venturing out in the world and becoming a drummer percussionist that works and that's part of a team and that works. And there's an era of professionalism where you show up for a gig, you work for an artist, and you help them out, and different artists have different needs. And I think that was, aside from going through a book or going through a school, there's an education process for me that a school can't teach, which is how do you get out there and work with people? How do you interface with people? If someone's hiring you to go play their music, what do they need? What extent do they need you? What extent do they don't? How can you help the process? And I think for me, one thing is being in a band with your friends and going out there and playing music. And the other thing is getting with an artist and serving that, and I've been lucky enough to work with a bunch of different artists, and they all need you in a different sense. And I think with Jack, what was really beautiful was that he had some general ideas about what he wanted. And sometimes it would be a beat. I remember reading an interview with, or maybe it was a podcast, Butch, where you talked about Tracy Chapman and how she would even have ideas about a hi-hat pattern or where you hit the hi-hat.
Yeah, we were in the quick story. I did the Let It Rain tour 2002. Tracy Chapman, amazing. And like you say, how can I be of service? That's right. That's what this is about with an artist. You can't learn that. You can't teach that. You have to be a part of it. We did a couple shows, and we went back to a sound check, and Tracy said, Butch, play your beat on Fast Car. right? So hi-hat and the side stick, and she goes, yeah, that's what I was hearing. So bring the side stick down for a lower pitch. Could you do that? So I'm like, okay. And she goes, and you're playing on the neck of the stick on the hi-hat. I want it on the tip. And I notice your bass drum, you're coming off the head, right? And I'm like, yeah. So she goes, yeah, leave the beater in the head.
Wow.
And so I play, and it complete. She could hear that,
Wow.
and she could tell me. She knew how to tell me how to adjust that. Now the flip side of that is Lucinda Williams, right?
Yeah.
Lou will go, something's wrong. What are you doing?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know, Lou, what's wrong? She goes, it's just not right. Let's start the song again. And she'll say that in the middle of a show.
Yeah.
She'll get up on the mic and she'll go, Butch, it's what's, and I said, well, the tempo is a little, and we have this discussion in front of the audience. Very two different ways of handling it with different artists. It's what I love, working with all different artists, and how are they perceiving things? How am I to perceive? How can I be of service and make this work?
You know, it's amazing you just said, because first of all the different people that we've worked with, how many of them, like Tracy, will be able to articulate that to the point of really dialing that in and really noticing and dialing that in like she did. That's pretty amazing. It's not that common.
No, it's not that common. No.
And then like you said, the other end of the coin is the Lucinda thing. I didn't really understand Lucinda that well until I saw her live, actually. I mean, I've listened to her for a long time. She's an amazing songwriter. Seeing her live is a whole other thing. I've never seen anybody do what she does like that. And her audience gets it. And they're along for that ride.
They're with her. Yeah. They don't. I'll see people on the street as I'm walking through the town. They go, "Hey, is Lou in a good mood tonight, or is she in a bad mood?"
Right.
Yeah.
I don't. And
what kind of show are we gonna get?
Right.
Oh, she can have a, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and they would be. I think they would be very disappointed if she didn't just stop a tune in the middle or. It would be unusual for her not to have that kind of spontaneity. And
the thing with Lou is that she's not great at articulating, but she knows when something is. She knows when something's wrong.
Yeah.
Infant car wheels on a gravel road. We were at Tipitina's in New Orleans, and she was getting an award 7-8 years ago, being inducted into the Hall of Fame. In New Orleans, Music Hall of Fame. And I start the song. She was very nervous that night, and I start Car Wheels. And it's the one song where I actually have to look at my metronome and get the tempo right, because if it's a little off, her lyric is, she freaks out. So I boom, I start it, and she starts singing the first verse, and she goes, "Stop, Butch, it's too fast. I can't sing the lyric." And I look over, and she's right. I had it at 94 and not 92. And I go,
wow.
I go, yeah, honey, you're right. So I put it down. I started again. And, she turned around. She went, okay.
Wow. So,
yeah.
So there's that. So other than maybe since that's an incredible story. So other than learning from percussion masters, a songwriter has so much to teach you,
Absolutely.
And I think that's been the beauty. So whether it's I'm lucky enough to be the drummer on the track or the song, or whether I'll get a batch of songs where a lot of my favorite drummers or great drummers I've never met are interpreting a song, I learn what they did, and then I get to and sometimes the artist wants you, no, don't just be yourself. Or sometimes they want to hear what was on the recording and they crafted that.
Right.
Those are all lessons, I think, in drumming, but not hearkening back to what I learned about being a part of a team. And I think when you asked about, maybe being in a band with Jack and Marlo and Zach, those were incredibly character building lessons as well. There's a lot of conflict because on one hand, I'll just speak for myself. You get into drumming and performing because you want to get out there and you want to shine, and there's some expression and there's some pride, you know, and there's like, you want to be expressive, but and yet there's another part of it where you absolutely have to be a part of a team, and you absolutely have to, whether it's your pride or your ego, those things are important. But first and foremost, you're there to serve the artist, and you're there to serve the group. And so it can there can be some conflict, you know.
Well, you know, that's one of the things.
Get into business like or entertainment because they don't want to be in an office in a cubicle. They want to be on the stage as this expressive entity. You know, I look at Bonham, you know, and you look at Buddy Rich, and you look at Philly Joe, and you look at again, I say Changuito or Pancho Quinto or Angad Diaz, and they're out there, they're shining, they're expressing. And that's a draw. I love that stuff, you know, Jimmy Page. And yet you're in another thing, working with a band or an artist or singer-songwriter, you are being asked to shine, but you're also being asked to make them to support those songs. And so there's a huge lesson in there, because back to what Butch was saying with Tracy Chapman and Rich, what you've talked to me about with your work, with some of the icons you've done, we're there to sound, to make it sound right, to make it feel good for the audience. And so there was a gig where Jack, you know, the bass player didn't show up, and we were at the Mint. Have you guys been to the Mint? It's this little club in LA on Fairfax. It's really cool. And he was like, we don't have a bass player. He went camping, and this was the different bass player. He went camping. He's not going to show up. So we put together a marching bass drum, one splash cymbal, no, you know, a snare drum and two congas, and a set of timbales. And Jack he might have played a timbale solo. It was very unorthodox. People loved it. It was a different presentation. And I was being asked to not use cymbals and no hi-hat. It was just one approach. And it was cool, and it worked. I never would have done that had I not been asked to. Yeah. And maybe it was, you know, and there have been a million times where I'm being asked to do things that wouldn't normally be my idea. But in hindsight, it's pretty cool. And it's a good opportunity. So
that's the other thing about the both of you and how you approach your careers. But I kind of resonated with it because I'm that way too, with regards to playing for the song and what the song needs and serving the song, you know. I think that to me is really exciting to do that, and to play the ensemble and really make it a group thing to serve the writer and the song, you know. You both do that so well with the two people that you're working with, but with all the people that you've worked with. And, you know, it's a reflection on who have inspired us when we grew up listening to drummers. I mean, whether it's Russ Kunkel or Charlie Watts or whoever, or Keltner, or whoever is so brilliant at playing as the song and making that song do that, you know. I mean, for me, when playing percussion for Glenn Frey was all about that, was all about coloring the song. It wasn't anything about let me go shine, you know. It was about what does the song need, you know. That's so important, you know. And that's what I love about what you guys do. You know, I want to dive in a little bit about.
But that is, at the end of the day, that is shining. I just didn't see it as that before. Maybe I got to be fortunate enough to be thrown in the ring with great artists. You know, I'll throw this out there, not just about Jack, but about Marilo and Zach, bass and keyboards in the band, is that when they throw ideas at me, or maybe when one of my ideas loses out to another idea, in hindsight, it isn't because, or specifically, you know, I'm outnumbered, or he or she are the boss. When I think about it in hindsight, their idea was actually maybe a little bit more effective than mine, and I got to learn something else. And so it wasn't just a teacher telling me, suggesting something. It was somebody that had a fresh idea. Yeah. Can I hear that? Can I implement it? Yeah. Can I recognize that? So those are pretty beautiful lessons in life, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like what Tracy did with you, Butch, and then what we've all experienced with working with producers. With, you know, and I've had producers who are multi-instrumentalists who might not have drums as their primary instrument, but they might say, "Hey, Rich, do this on the verse," and it would be like, "Oh, I didn't think of that. That's kind of cool." And if you're open to it, it completely opens up your world, and I love that stuff.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Like Michael Lennon from the band Venice that I've worked with for years. He's a fantastic writer, keyboard, guitar, drums, but he approaches it differently, and he showed me a lot about playing something a little bit you wouldn't think about,
Right.
really interesting,
Yeah.
Lucinda, how did that come to you, Butch?
That came to me via an old Eels tour manager was managing Lucinda, and Don Heffington was the drummer at the time.
Okay.
Who just passed recently.
Sorry to interrupt. This Gon Bops conga that I'm pointing at,
Yeah.
Right.
was Don's.
Wow.
That's right. You just got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Don wanted to stop touring. They were in the middle of a tour, and I got the call. The bass player, David Sutton, was in Lucinda's band, who I played with many times, who actually was the audition bass player for E, and he brought me in to meet E, audition for that gig 15 years earlier. So he was the bass player with Lucinda, and they called, "Hey, next week, can you pick up on this tour?" And they sent me the board tapes, and I did my little charts and flew to Minneapolis, and that was it. That was 14 years ago.
Dang.
That was my next question. How long ago? Wow. Okay. 14 years.
Did you have the charts on stage when you jumped in, or did you memorize them?
Oh, no. I had not charts, my cheat sheets. I get a half a piece of paper. I marked, verse, chorus. I had the BPM of each song, so I kind of knew. And I asked the tour manager, so those 30 songs you sent me, those are going to be on the set list the first night. Oh, yeah. And Lucinda doesn't do sound checks. There was no rehearsals.
What? You just got thrown in.
Oh, yeah. I walked to the side of the stage, and I said, and Lou walks up as we're about to go on stage. She goes, "Good luck. It's good to meet you."
Whoa.
And so we go on stage, and 8 of those 30 songs were on the set list. The other 15 I'd never, ever heard before.
Wow.
Does she do set lists, or does she just call them out? Like,
No, there's set lists.
Okay.
There's set lists, but we don't get the set list until half hour before the show. It's been a bone of contention for many years. Could we please get the set list earlier? But it's just not how it works. And so there'll be songs on there that we haven't played in years. And so David Stewart and I are on our iPods, like, okay, how does that? And they're like, what chord, what key is she doing this song in now?
Oh my gosh. This
is right before a show. It's really great for getting our energy up.
Yeah, I guess. You don't need coffee.
No, it's the beauty of the gig. I mean, it's so great. You are flying by the seat of your pants, and the energy, and there's no complacency, and the three of us are in it, and we are backing her wherever she goes. Oh, we're making a left turn. Here we go.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's a different thing than Tracy Chapman, where she did 3.5 hour sound checks every day, and would go out into the venue with the front of house guy and tune the room. And we played the songs, it had to be exactly the same every night. And every night show was spectacular. And her voice, spot on every second, every night. Beautiful. Different. Yeah. 2 different entities.
Yeah.
Dang.
Before we wrap up today, guys, there's a couple things I want to, obviously, let's talk a little bit about your Gon Bops gear and some of your favorite instruments that you use. And then I want to get into a little bit of how people can hear your original music. But let's talk a little bit about the Gon Bops gear that you use and how you kind of integrate it these days. Behind you, like you just said, Adam, that's an old vintage conga that you just got, which was Don Heffington's. but that's kind of very similar to what we have now, which is our Mariano series. I think you both have those drums, right?
Yes.
And then, yeah.
I love my Mariano.
Can I show you guys how much I love Marianos? This is from, this is well over 20 years ago. My first set of congas. You could see I did a Halloween gig. Whoa. I was duct tape man. And there I am playing an original set of Marianos. This was at the Roxy Theater with and the Hindu Stuntmen.
Yes. Oh wow.
So I've been using Gon Bops, that my first set of congas, and I still have a set of black band Marianos that I use on stage.
Yes. Yeah. I use my Marianos in the studio all the time. The hand toys that you've given me, the maracas, I use pretty much every show. The beautiful Gon Bops maracas, which I love. The calfskin ones, the
rawhide ones,
the rawhide.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere without those. I have about 4 pair. I sleep with them sometimes. But
I've been to Butch's drum bunker, and he's got guys and gals who are listening. He has so many different nuances of shakers and bells and tambourines and stuff. And so for Butch to kind of give props to a specific thing, he's gone through, he gets some percussion nuances that I didn't even think of. So for him to say that, I'm going to order a pair now because you said that, Butch.
Yeah, you should. And I would charge him double.
I'll wear pink. I'll get my pink.
Get the pink on. Yeah. Okay.
You know what's pretty cool? I'm nerding out. But okay, you look at this bell. The way that it mounts, on other ones it would have like one bolt, and I'd have to do these things where you get 2 drumsticks to tighten it, and or you'd have to have pliers. No disrespect to anybody, or then it would get clamped on, or it would come loose during a gig. And so, with the bells, that mounting system, it just, you can use a drum key. It just pops on and pops off, and so like
show that again. That's what he's talking about. Everybody's a V grip. We call it our V grip. So you can tighten it with with both the drum key and the thumb screw, and it doesn't move. We have that on all our bells and also all our mounted tambourines. It's a pretty great thing. It definitely is a game changer. I agree. I don't want to be without that now on those types of things. Yeah. And I see you have the bucket shaker in the background too.
Yeah. Butch, do you have one of those?
I do not have one. I need to get one.
Yeah,
I'll pay double for that. That's fine.
Yeah. Our friend, just to give our shout out, our friend Will Phillips developed this. And Butch, I think you and Rich, both of you guys are good Pandaro players. I'm not. I want to learn that. Well,
sort of.
No. I have some Pandaros, but again, I don't have Pandaro technique. That technique, and my Bowron technique, I've tried and realized, But I do my weird freehand stuff.
Yeah, which is dope. But for the bucket shaker, guys, you can put it on a snare stand and use a brush, and it gets like a one-shot hi-hat thing that's really great. We talked about one of the things I admire about both of you guys is you're rooted in some traditions, but you take all those things and you make it your own. And I think I got stuck maybe a little bit in the Cuban thing, in that they're very much like heel, toe, slap. There's very specific patterns that are either make it right or not. And I think mentally I got to hang out with you guys and watch you create your own rules while respecting the traditions. And so it was cool.
No respect. No.
And so with the bucket shaker, I don't use it like with shakere necessarily, or like a pandero, but I'll put it in a snare stand. I'll use a cajon. So when you're backing an artist, now everyone wants cajon. They've discovered that instrument. And so, but you need a hi-hat that does a single shake. And so I'll put that in a snare stand loosely and play like a brush. And all of a sudden it's a hi-hat, and you've got the kick and snare and a cajon, and the audience gets something, and they inevitably go up and say, "You're playing a lampshade. That's pretty cool." Or what is that? And then I get to hobnob about lampshades. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, it's a great versatile instrument, but you need to have it. And which cajones are you guys using right now from us? I can't remember which.
I don't even know that. I was one of the first ones.
Yeah, I think you have I can't remember if it's a flamenco or a cunha.
It's a flamenco.
Okay.
It's a flamenco, which I love. Yeah.
There's a fiesta, right?
Yeah, there's a fiesta too.
That's the one. It's a party. It's a fiesta.
That's another series, but yeah, that's
yeah. But all of them are fantastic. You know, I'm kind of the one I want is the one right behind you, Rich, with the beautiful pattern. Yeah, that beautiful pattern. Is that the Acuna?
Yeah, that's the Acuna Special Edition.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's one of everything that we make along my wall here, it's there's a huge sound variety for sure. That's one of the things about Gon Bops cajones. There's a wide range of texture, sound, tone. It's kind of a little something for everybody. It's really a nice selection for sure.
For Hanukkah, I want to ask for that one.
Yeah. And then the Pandaro that you mentioned, we make an 8 and a 10. And Will Phillips is a fantastic Pandaro player and had a hand in helping us come up with this. It's very lightweight. So that's definitely a really interesting and good instrument. And even if you're not a Pandaro player, it's also beautiful to integrate into drum set. Really cool thing, you know. Toys wise, like Butch said, we've got a wide range of sounds for whatever you need, and always thinking to come up with something different too. So
those Pete Engelhardt, is it a Hecko thing?
The Pete Engelhardt stuff, yep. There's different. Like I think we have 3 or 4 or 5 now selection in his line of really cool instruments.
Yeah. I love mine.
Yeah,
the bells, all of it, fantastic stuff.
So before we wrap up, you guys, I want to talk a little about your original compositions and your original recordings. Butch, you came out with a solo percussion thing, and then the recent thing that you did also with Michael. Talk a little bit about and then Buick 6 has a 1 or 2 releases?
We have 3 releases. Instrumental stuff. The Buick 6, Lucinda's band. We started this about 10 years ago, started jamming, and Lucinda came into the studio while we were recording her little Honey record. And she heard us just jamming, and her husband said, "Why don't you guys make your own record while we have some time here?" And that we started jamming these instrumental jams, and that's how this blossomed into this thing. And we've done some opening slots for her on a couple tours. It's been a wonderful thing. And then this solo or the duo percussion project with Michael Jerome from Mr. Thompson's band. Richard Thompson, sorry. Yeah. Richard, and Better Than Ezra.
Yeah.
We were at a festival in Memphis about 6 years ago and hanging out, and we said, we need to do a project together. We went into the studio for one day, and I brought in a boatload of my stuff, and we improvised, and that's what this record is, La Prima Lingua. It's experimental, ethnic, eclectic percussion, sound stuff, and we've done a few videos, and when the pandemic's over, we will be doing some live stuff, and I think we're talking to PAS, Percussive Art Society, about doing something in the future.
Good. And you also did a drum festival, or something not too long ago, right? There was some drum.
Drumhead, yes, Drumhead magazine.
Drumhead. Right.
Last fall we did. It was a virtual festival. Right. Who else? We had Peter Erskine and others participating. We got to do a performance of one of our pieces.
That's great.
So awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Adam, you've kind of dove deeply into solo stuff with doing your the Culver City Dub Collective stuff, which is really cool. And then your different records that you've done in the Latin realm. And then your jazz record, and then your singer-songwriter record. So you've kind of like done the whole thing with your background. So
it's a lot. Yeah, Butch, I was really inspired with the percussion record you did, and I'd love to do one of those types of things too. That's a great idea. I just back to being in a band and stuff. One of the challenges that I faced working for different art, being lucky enough to work for different artists, was that, and I'm not proud to admit it, but at times, the songwriter is the primary focus point. And I just started to feel like, am I a drummer by choice? Why am I here, and what does it mean? And what is this worth? Because one of the challenges with drummers, I think, I don't want to speak for other drummers, but for myself, is sometimes you're just jumping in on pre-made music and you're accompanying it. And if you're playing a backbeat, sure, the feel is going to determine everything about the band. But if you talk about songwriting, about what gets maybe mentioned, about what gets that attention, what shines, oftentimes it's going to be the singer, the artist. That's the main thing. And that's fine. And that's a beautiful thing. But I started to think, well, what is it like doing that? And so I decided to try to write some songs, because I wanted to make sure to tell myself, like, I'm back here because I want to be back here. I freaking love drumming. I love Charlie Watts. I love Ringo. I love James Gadsden. Like, that's a masterful pursuit. And I think maybe for me to realize that, and maybe to get some ideas out, I had to sit down and own that as maybe grabbing a guitar and trying to write a song and putting myself in the shoes of the people I was supporting. And it really helped, I did 2 records on this label called Ever Loving, one called Regardless of the Dark and one called Quando, where I sang and wrote some stuff down. And it was such a learning experience in terms of, like, maybe what was I asking of people to support me, and how did it feel to write a song, and how did it feel to have my voice coming out of a PA. And it was a really good growth opportunity. It went down to, I even did a tour opening for my friend Donovan Frankenreiter. We toured Europe, and I said, all right, if I'm going to write a song, I'm going to do a tour where I'm not going to have a studio band and Pro Tools fixing my voice and stuff like that. I'm going to grab an acoustic guitar, and I'm going to sing and play. And that's what I did. And I'll tell you, it was the most valuable experience.
I bet.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah, and your records are super vibey and super cool. Yeah. I was quite impressed. I had no idea you had those capabilities. It is very annoying.
and same with you. And Rich, I just want to give you a shout out too. We've sat down and I've heard both of your original music, instrumental music, and that stuff is beautiful too. So
especially in conjunction with your artwork, with your paintings. It's
my dad's painting.
Your dad's paintings. Yeah, how you've combined that. It's really magical, really special. Whoa.
I think it's, at this point, especially with what's happened in the past year and a half, you guys, for all of us, I think we all have kind of picked up new tools from the toolbox and really gone into our worlds. I think it's important to express and really kind of like bring out what's really the total picture of all of us, And,
well, I think
I've been so rewarding.
I think it's the pandemic for me has been a great time to come back to that and to experience and to bring up some new things or to accomplish some things that I wouldn't have done while I was in my in my little hamster wheel before the pandemic, where so I've taken this time to appreciate that stuff.
It's so true. Me too. So before we wrap up, guys, tell everybody where they can find your original music, and when you find their stuff, guys, out there, please get it and listen. You'll hear how they utilize the Gon Bops instruments so creatively on their original recordings. So Butch, where can they find your material?
Just the best thing is just go to my website, butchdrums.com.
Okay. And same with you, Adam, right? With your website?
AdamTopol.com. Yeah.
Right.
Jump on Instagram, which Butch is not yet on, but I hope I want to give a shout out to, back to the discipline of learning drums, what Butch does. I don't want to put you on the spot, dude, but he broadcasts things live that are amazing, whether it's a cover of another song and you're playing over it, or whether it's some rhythms you've learned live at the Butch Bunker. That brought me back into things like that, bring me back into taking a lot of pride in being a percussionist and a drummer. And it's funny, it's humorous, it's cool, it's original. And so I think when I get to see Butch showcase his stuff, those are some of the places that I dig, those Facebook things where you're filming yourself doing stuff live. There's no fixing it,
Right.
So that's something I want to give a shout out to.
Yeah. Be creative and yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be broadcast quality. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just play. Play.
There.
Right.
We're lucky. We're so lucky to have this passion. Whatever level, whatever outcome, just to have this gift is such a great thing.
I also want to shout out to your company, Adam, which I use all the time. His Roots EQ, guys. It's really a cool drum mute. It's really
push.
Just a quick show. It's really very, very cool, very useful. I use them. Butch uses them. A lot of people are using these now, and they're really cool drum mutes. Yeah. So
throw those bombs.
I remember, Rich, when you came out to the Butch Bunker and showed them to me when this was just taken off. 8 years ago? Something you were peddling them out for Mr. Topol. Yeah. Huh?
And a lot of people that we know and love, recording drummers that we love, are all using these now.
Oh yeah.
And it's definitely a game changer when recording, for sure, and live. But so check them out, everybody. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this. This has been so much fun.
Have a great weekend, everybody. I'm in such good company with such incredible drummers and homies.
Yes. Love.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Great show. And hang tight for just a second, and I'm going to sign off. I'll be right back with you, okay?
Cool.
Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in today. And if you have any questions for these two guys, you can always write to them on their websites. You can send us a note, and we'll pass it along to them. Any questions about any Gon Bops instruments, any questions at all, we're happy to answer your questions. And we'll just keep doing this and keep the village growing. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. See you. Bye.